wraps up a full day of live and local sports talk.
And that is the whole problem with aliens. You just can't trust them. Occasionally you meet a nice one, but usually they turn out to be some kind of big lizard.
The Skraby Show starts now on 97.3 The Fan.
Hello and welcome into the Skraby Show for December 9th, 2025. My name is Matt Skraby. Thank you so much for joining me. I will be here until 7 p.m. If you would like to watch the show, you can just go to Facebook, search 97.3 The Fan, or you can go to the Skraby Show on YouTube. It's youtube.com /at The Skraby Show, SKRAB as in boy, Y. And you can also go to the 97.3 The Fan YouTube, Twitch 97.3 The Fan, X 97.3 The Fan SD, and also you can go and use the Odyssey app with all the chaptering. So Odyssey app, Gwen and Chris, 97.3 The Fan, all those search terms will get you back to where you need to be. And a lot happened today at the winter meetings. Well, I mean, I guess I should say a lot happened at the start of the day at the winter meetings, and then nothing really happened after that. If you are just tuning in or getting in your car after work, there were two big signings today, free agent signings. And one of them, Kyle Schwarber, Pirates did their best. They put their best foot forward and made him an offer. However, he's going to be staying with the Phillies. $150 million there. I believe 5 years on that one. Edwin Diaz, closer, formerly of the Mets. The trumpets are not going to sound at Citi Field anymore because they're going to be sounding at Dodger Stadium next season and the next 3 seasons. Edwin Diaz is now a Dodger. He signed for 3 years, $69 million. And I'm not even going to complain about a super team because I already did that last year. And it didn't really help with anything in the end. So I'm not going to go that route tonight. I'm not going to whine about the Dodgers signing everyone because I've already done it and nothing happened good for me. Everything bad happened. The Dodgers won the World Series. But I will say, you don't have to spend bajillion dollars to create a winning team. And we did see that last year during the regular season that any team can play bad baseball and open up the division. The Padres, if you don't remember, I went back and looked. The Padres were up 1 game in the NL West as late as August 23rd. So they were leading the division as late as August 23rd. And then, I believe that was the weekend that they went in and got swept by the Dodgers up in LA. Not 100% sure on that, but they were 1 game back on September 8th. So Sam Levitt said it earlier on Gwen and Chris. I'm saying it right now, and I've said it for a while. Not winning the division is going to haunt this 2025 Padres team because it was right there. It was right there. And the one thing that I will say about last year and what I learned, each year I learned something new about my baseball fandom. And last year, what I learned was that super teams can exist on paper, but they can also struggle in real life. And so that's what I'm going to hang my hat on. I'm gonna hang it on the fact that the Dodgers were good last year. They struggled. They were in a spot where another team could win the division. And so, Edwin Diaz is a good closer, a really good closer. He's making the most money for any closer in baseball and in history. But he can do those things where he ends up losing control. He can get a little squirrely on you. And I think with him being squirrely, we're going to see that a few times this coming year. But I will say, because I'm not even really angry anymore at the Dodgers signing everyone, quote unquote, because why should I get upset about something that a league doesn't see a problem in? Now, in the next segment, I'm going to go over some of my ideas that I'm going to present to Rob Manfred. Hopefully, he'll listen. But I came up with some different ideas as to how you can get a salary floor because I looked at all the numbers last night and this morning, and the bottom feeders, as Dave Roberts said, last week, the bottom feeders are the problem more so than the big spenders. The big spenders are a problem for their own reasons, meaning other teams just cannot compete with the Dodgers and sign as many players as they have for the amount of money that they have. And I know that people are going to tell me, well, yeah, any team could do that. No, not any team can do that. It's just not possible. And that's where people go wrong. And that's where the league goes wrong. Well, if other teams were to offer those contracts, there's not other teams don't have unlimited money coming in from other countries like Japan because they have three of the biggest stars on their team are from Japan: Roki Sasaki, Shohei Ohtani, and Yoshinobu Yamamoto. So I don't buy into that narrative at all that other teams can do the same thing. It's just not true. And everyone who's saying it is true are not really paying attention, because how do you see this and you're like, okay, the Dodgers last year signed the biggest name on the free agent reliever market in Tanner Scott for a lot of money. There's not a penalty for them. And that's the problem. Because if, Tanner Scott did not work out last year for the Dodgers, and they're still paying him a lot of money. But the team that won the World Series and had the highest payroll by millions of dollars, this is where it goes wrong for me. They should not be able to, in back-to-back years, bring in closers that are the closer of the offseason, free agent-wise. They should not be able to do that. That's where the problem is. And I don't know why Rob Manfred thinks this is a good thing for baseball. It's not a good thing for baseball. Again, I'm not complaining about it because I think that the Dodgers are going to run away with it. But there is no team in baseball, maybe the Mets because of Steve Cohen's money, and the Yankees, which the Yankees say they don't have a lot of money, which I really don't understand how that's possible because they're one of the most valuable sports franchises in the entire world. But there's only like one team, I'll say the Mets, that could do this, that could sign in back-to-back years the closer of the free agency class. And I just really don't see the benefit for the baseball fan here. I don't see it. So in the next segment, again, I'm going to go and give my, suggestions to Rob Manfred about how to make a salary floor. And I even talked to Tony about it. So I think I'm on to something. But again, this is just some of the things that we have to this is just some of the things that we have to deal with in the baseball world right now, because the Dodgers are on top of it and they're spending a lot of money. Same could be said, I guess, with the Yankees back in the day, but hey, it's a way different time now. Players make a lot more money, teams make a lot more money. And Rod said, prediction, Robert Suarez on his way to the Mets. I'm fine with that, please. I mean, I would rather have him in the AL. Robert Suarez is not getting as many looks, and it's probably because of his age a little bit. He's 35, but it's, who knows? Maybe the market on Robert Suarez is not great, and he ends up coming back to the Padres for a cheaper price. Who knows about that? But out there at the winter meetings, the big talk is about Edwin Diaz becoming a Dodger. Kyle Schwarber, we already knew he was going to be a Philly, so I'm not too surprised there. But Edwin Diaz becoming a Dodger is a little bit surprising. Now, Sam Levitt, he is out there at the winter meetings. All of our coverage, if you want to see what he's been doing, go to our Twitter at 97.3 The Fan SD, and you'll be able to see all those videos. But Sam Levitt caught up with Dennis Lin earlier today, and the new thing is exploring a Nick Pivetta trade. And we've talked about it, but here's Dennis Lin was the one who wrote the report about this. So he was the one with the information. Here is Dennis Lin talking about them exploring a trade for Nick Pivetta.
Well, I wouldn't say they're necessarily shopping him. They're definitely listening on him. And the number one thing when you say the Padres are listening is AJ Preller always listens on everybody. I mean, he famously said, I think at one of these winter meetings, if I can get 2 Tatises for 1 Tatis, I'll always listen. But the thing is, the Padres don't have a lot of money to spend. Maybe we're all speculating here, right? But just informed speculation, maybe $10 to $20 million. That's not a lot of money given the price of starting pitching on the open market, trade market. So I think the question is, if not Pivetta, who would they trade to kind of free up money to fill out this roster? Because right now it's a little bit unbalanced in the starting rotation, as everyone knows. And Pivetta is going to make $19 million, $20 million next year, and probably going to walk after the year, assuming he has a decent year and stays healthy. So that's something they're going to consider, something they are considering, from what I understand. And I wouldn't call it likely, but again, the question is, who would they trade if not him?
That was Dennis Lin of The Athletic with Sam Levitt earlier today talking about Nick Pivetta and who would they try. I mean, it's a great question because they don't really have many major league caliber players that they can trade and maybe fill some of the needs in more than one area, except for Nick Pivetta coming off of a career year. But he is jumping from $1 million to he's jumping from $1 million, and you heard Dennis Lin, $19 or $20 million coming up this year, which he's worth it because he was the team's best pitcher last year. But I get why AJ Preller would listen to some of these things. I get why he would consider something like that because you can fill multiple needs. But I also, at the same time, I guess maybe that's why I'm not a great fantasy football GM I did win a fantasy baseball championship back-to-back years, so maybe I know what I'm talking about. Just kidding. But I wouldn't want to trade a guy that's coming off of a career year when I need starting pitching. So that's something that I think the Padres are really wrestling with is, do we give up something that we need for a bunch of different players that can actually fill in at different spots? And I don't even know how much you're going to get back for Nick Pivetta. I don't know if you're going to get I don't know if you're going to get a major league ready player that's going to make a difference this year for Nick Pivetta. So I don't see it happening, but I can't say that I don't think it will happen because anytime I think something's not going to happen, it ends up happening. But I don't want to see Nick Pivetta go anywhere. Also, Sam Levitt with Dennis Lin. The big thing today is, you know what? It's break time. On the other side, we're going to hear from Dennis Lin one more time about the big Padres move this offseason. We'll hear from AJ Preller, who talked about it as well. You're listening to the Skraby Show. Back shortly on 97.3 The Fan.
Okay.
Matt Skraby back with you here on 97.3 The Fan. Winter Meetings Day 2 is in the books, or at least it's 9:19 p.m. I wonder if Sam Levitt got his dinner. I'm sure he did. So I'm doing something new during the Skraby Show for myself, and it's just to help me remember, because last week I said, I'm going to get to this when I get back. And then I got back, and I never got to it. And I always remember on my drive home, I always remember like, hey, shoot, you didn't do what you said you were going to do. So now I'm going to write down things that I need to get to and put it right in front of me so that I cannot miss out on it. I mean, it sounds easy enough to be like, yeah, when we get back, we'll do this. And then you get into the break and I'm doing a million things and I forget. It's not great. It's not great. And I definitely hate when I promise that I'm going to talk about something and then I don't talk about it. So I'm not a fan of that, and I apologize for that. So I'm using my new whiteboard to remind myself. So let me get the eraser because I'm going to mark off this first one, and that would be the thank you section. And I just wanted to thank everyone for being so awesome to me on Friday, which was the day that it's my sobriety birthday. I celebrated 9 years on Friday. So I put it on Instagram. I put a little story on Instagram. If you want to go see that story and learn more about my past, which was full of a lot of bad things and drugs and alcohol, more so alcohol than anything else, but 9 years. And I am now doing a lot better than I was 9 years ago. It was kind of crazy to think about the journey, but you can go to my Instagram at Matt Skraby, MattsKraby, as in boy, Y, and you'll be able to find my story. So if you've never heard how and why I am 9 years on Friday, just go read all of that, because my life was bad. My life was not great. And it's definitely, it's like 1,000 times better now. I would never go back. So to all the people that commented on the Instagram post, thank you. I tried to get through and recognize as many people as I can, and I'm going to try to keep doing that. But thank you to everybody who reached out. It was honestly, it's always surprising to me, but I have a lot of people that care about me. And that's a very, very awesome thing to know and to have, just to know that there are people out there for everyone is a good thought for me, because I was very lonely back in the day of drinking. Very lonely. One day at a time, Trevor says. That is absolutely correct. All right. Now we're going to knock off our next one. I just erased the Dennis Lynn note. So Dennis Lynn, we talked about before we went to break. And there's this huge thing going around winter meetings. AJ Preller is going to make a deal that's bigger than the Juan Soto deal. It's happening. There's legs. Those are the reports. What does Dennis Lynn know about that? Will there be a big move by the Padres this offseason?
They could do something big anytime AJ Preller is still their general manager. So I think there are players out there that he would still very much like. The question is, does he have enough left to get them? And if he doesn't have enough, what kind of crazy trade he's going to make to give himself enough flexibility. I know Mackenzie Gore is someone he's always loved. He was very emotional, I think, personally, when he traded him away for Juan Soto, but it was Juan Soto. So that was why he made that trade. Gore is still out there. I don't know if they have enough to get him, but if they can trade someone else and get prospects back in return to maybe go out and acquire Mackenzie Gore, or if they can, shoot even higher potentially, that's all on the table with AJ Preller. It's just a matter of how he's going to do it.
All right. So I could totally see a scenario where AJ Preller makes a deal for prospects, but then flips those prospects for another player that's major league ready. I could see that happening. So that makes sense to me, that could happen. And AJ Preller, as Dennis Lynn said, we all know he can make a deal at any moment that's going to break it all wide open. And I think if there is a deal in place, it's got to be for a major league ready player. I just don't see them trading a player that's already on their roster and trading him for prospects and actually taking the prospects in. Like if you trade someone for prospects and then you flip them, like kind of like Drew Thorpe was flipped for Dylan Cease from the Yankees trade that got Juan Soto. Drew Thorpe helped get Dylan Cease, so I can understand that. In a world where they acquire prospects, I would never expect those prospects to ever be a part of the Padres system because they're just a means to an end. And if there is a big move this offseason, it will not surprise me, but I do not see it being with the name Fernando Tatis Jr., Manny Machado, Xander Bogaerts, Jackson Merrill. I just don't see it. Now, Jake Cronenworth on one hand, I think that he is getting some interest as well, but those three, Manny, Xander, or those four, Manny, Xander, Fernando, and Jackson Merrill, I just don't see them trading those guys, at least right now. I just really hope they never trade them. All right. There's the Dennis Lynn. Now we got the MLB Network. I'm on track, guys. I'm on track. MLB Network had AJ Preller on today, and they had to, which, by the way, they MLB Network posted it like this. Padres Pobo and GM AJ Preller responds to the rumors regarding a potential big trade at the winter meetings. I've never heard of Pobo, but it's a president of baseball operations. I thought that was a funny little abbreviation. But anyway, Padres Pobo and GM AJ Preller talks to the MLB Network crew about the rumors regarding a potential big trade at the winter meetings.
I mean, I think it's the time of year where, you know, all front offices, and Rick knows you're in these rooms and you have all kinds of ideas and thoughts flying, and 99% of them don't come to fruition. So I think for us, we try to be prepared. You know, we feel like we have a good feel for what our team needs and our club needs. And some years we've made moves at the meeting, some years we haven't. You know, we don't. You know, ultimately, there's a lot of time between now and spring training, and you know, we've had some years where we've been doing press conferences in Peoria. You know, for Machado, or last year for Nick Pivetta, and pulling off trades later for Dylan Cease. So we'll see where it all plays out.
Are there any untouchable players on your roster?
Yeah, I mean, again, like anything, you want to listen. I mean, you want to be able to listen to hear what people are going to say. That's the only way to find out more information and hear what's out there. But we like our team. You know, I mean, we've had a club that's been in the playoffs now back-to-back years, and a team over the last, you know, four out of the last 6 in the playoffs with a chance to win the World Series. And you only do that with really good players on the field. We've got a great foundation, a great group. And, you know, ultimately it's nice to go into these meetings looking to fill a few different specific holes and not, you know, looking to revamp the whole thing.
I'm a big body language guy. I was watching when you put that front end, and I was trying to read him because he was looking at nothing, no reaction to it.
So what does that mean?
No, I'm saying we're not going to know. He could be.
I'm a big body language. I watch in the morning when you do that D-Rose snorkeling thing, and you got you know, some of that stuff you pull off, and I've got different thoughts for you based on some of the stuff I watch. So,
all right, well,
I'm watching you too, D-Rose.
All right.
That's pretty funny, actually. But AJ Preller doing what AJ Preller does, and that's not answer the question while trying to answer the question. But he's smart. Sam and Tony said it earlier. You never say someone's untouchable, because you never know what someone's willing to give you for a player. You can always listen. And this is why I would not be a good GM at all, because I'm terrified to make a bad trade. And this is all through fantasy sports that I'm talking, but I am always terrified to make a bad trade. And it just seems really, really, there's a lot of pressure on a GM to make a trade work, or else you're just going to be that joke of that team's fans forever. AJ Preller makes trades work. And it seems like lately the trades have been working better than not working. So I think AJ, you know, he's right too. Things have happened with the Padres here all the way up until spring training, until like a couple weeks before the season actually begins. So again, I can't really be too upset that no moves are being made, because this is just status quo for the Padres. This is just status quo. I did tell you I was going to present this idea about how to get a salary floor for Major League Baseball, and I am going to do that. Also, on the other side, Quentin Jammer tweeted something out, former Charger. He tweeted something out that is crazy. I just never thought about it like this. So we'll go over my ideas for a salary floor in Major League Baseball. We'll also talk about that Quentin Jammer thing. And we will have a daily gripe on the other side. One more segment to go on the Skraby Show, 97.3 The Fan.
Ben and Woods on the Fan.
And then there's all these different desserts to choose from. Ben goes, Woodsy, guess what I'm going to get? And I look through and I'm like, I want a chocolate cake. He's like, no. Well, what about the strawberry dish? No. And I go, there's no way you're ordering butterscotch pudding.
One of my all-time favorites.
Because you're
I love
not
butterscotch.
100 years old,
Love
right?
butterscotch pudding. Who doesn't love
Donnie,
butterscotch?
fix me up a bowl of butterscotch pudding.
Listen to Ben and Woods weekdays from 6 to 10 a.m. on 97.3 The Fan.
Okay, I only have 30 seconds here, so let's talk about how fast time moves. You know, you weren't thinking about getting another car, then suddenly it's time to replace it. Or it's time for your daughter's quinceañera. Or time to start planning for retirement. That's why
segment here. Matt Skraby, 97.3 The Fan. You can follow me if you would like on social media at Matt Skraby, MattsKraby, as in boy, Y. But really, I need more people on the YouTube because I'm trying to get to a certain level on the YouTube and I need some more subscribers. So this at the Skraby Show on YouTube, if you are willing to subscribe to this crazy guy over here. If you didn't see our Gwen and Chris overtime yesterday, I felt like it may have been our most lively overtime. And the first topic was Notre Dame crying about not being a part of the college football playoff, which I really do think is becoming worse and worse of a look all the time. But that wasn't really, that was the main topic. But we also talked about the big traffic jam that happened on Friday. That was crazy. And we talked about it during the overtime. So if you would like to hear what we had to say about that, Chris and Tony, they didn't have any problems with the traffic because they didn't deal with it at all. I did. My dad did. Many people I know did. Some of you probably, no, not probably, did sit through that traffic. And here, the gist of the conversation was, we know and want to be sensitive to the situation that was happening and that life is precious. We do. But we were just asking questions about when does the majority overrule the minority. And there were people, I was seeing someone on Reddit saying their son broke their arm and they were trying to get to the hospital and they couldn't get there. And so they had to sit in traffic for like 4 or 5 hours. But it's pretty crazy to think about a major freeway being shut down from like 11:30 to 8 p.m. and all of the people that were just stuck, like lost. There were people saying they lost jobs. There were people saying they missed flights trying to get to the airport. Like, it was a mess. And again, I understand when that there was a life on the line. And I'm not saying that they shouldn't have done what they did. I honestly don't know what the playbook should be on this. I really don't. And I know that some people are going to say certain things. I'm not going to go in that direction. I'm just not sure what the playbook is for this. Because you got to think, like, the city's flow, traffic flow, is important, especially on a Friday night when, people are trying to get places. And again, all of that sometimes is small in the scheme of the big things. But still, anyway, we talked about it on the overtime. I thought it was kind of an interesting conversation. So go to the Gwen and Chris YouTube at Gwen and Chris SD, and you will find it there. All right. The salary floor idea. Now, the reason I say salary floor instead of a salary cap is because the bottom feeders of the league are more of a problem than the teams that are spending at the top. Because you have teams like in 2025, if we're looking at total cash spent throughout the year. Actually, the Dodgers, that's really funny. The Dodgers are second. The Mets they had more total cash spent last year at $394 million, which is kind of crazy to me. Anyway, the bottom of the list is just too low. They're not making a dent, or even, let me put it this way. Players aren't thinking about signing there because they know they're not going to get a real offer from these teams. These teams are trying to keep their payroll as low as possible. They're trying to keep their payroll under a certain amount. So here's the 2025. I finally got the right thing here. Total payroll last year for the Miami Marlins, they were the bottom of the league. $67.8 million. 67.8. So when I'm saying that the floor is the problem, it's because that team right there has already eliminated themselves from signing any sort of player with any sort of contract. It doesn't even need to be a superstar contract. These teams are not they're not giving players options to go to certain places. So the players that are, going to command a lot of money naturally gravitate towards the top of the league. They gravitate towards the Dodgers and the Mets and the Phillies and the Blue Jays. So if you're a team that's at the bottom, you've already told the big name free agents, we are not going to sign you. So here was my idea. Because if in my weird way of thinking, I was thinking if you had a salary floor, that would mean that teams have to spend a certain amount of money, which means that all players can choose, or that all teams can make a legitimate offer to a player instead of only that player looking at like 2 or 3 teams being able to afford them. So Edwin Diaz's 3 years, $69 million contract is more than what the Marlins paid their players last year. That's crazy to me. That is crazy. So here's the idea. You take the previous year average, and in this case, we're just taking 2025 average, which was around the for the total payroll of each team, around $176 million was the average. I rounded everything on these. And then I said, why not? They have this whole percentage thing for the luxury tax. Why not put a percentage thing on the salary floor that I'm trying to champion? And so you take 30% of 176 million, that's 52.8 million. So then you take the 176 minus 52.8, you get $123.2 million. The salary floor, in my example, is going to be $123.2 million. How many teams were under that number last year? 7. Starting with the Reds, 119 million. And the Reds made the playoffs. And they got the Nationals, the Guardians. They made the playoffs too. The Rays, the Pirates, the White Sox, the A's, and then the Marlins. But if you have a salary floor of $123.2 million in this loose example, that means that the Marlins are going to have to spend over 50, I don't know, I'm doing math in my head, $56 million more. That could be several players that would it be able to make money and make money that they're worth, but not have to just look at the Dodgers, the Mets, and the Yankees, the Blue Jays, those teams at the top to go to. That's why we're getting top heavy. Because like right now I'm looking on MLB Network and they have the best available free agents. Kyle Tucker, number 1. What teams has he been in on? The teams are the Blue Jays. I've seen the Yankees. I've seen the Dodgers. But basically what I'm saying, all the teams that are at the top already in payroll. The teams at the bottom aren't even considering Kyle Tucker, and Kyle Tucker isn't even considering those teams at the bottom. Because if you say, hey, Kyle Tucker, we would like you on the Cincinnati Reds. Cincinnati Reds are not a bad team. They made the playoffs last year. They're young. They're getting better each year. So Kyle Tucker could say, hey, this is not actually a bad place for me. And he's a lefty, so there you go. I believe he's lefty. But Kyle Tucker's not thinking about the Cincinnati Reds. Kyle Tucker is thinking about the teams at the top. And if you were to force teams to spend a little bit more money, then Kyle Tucker may think about those teams in free agency. He's not going to think about the Nationals. I understand that. They're a bad team with no real, success ahead of them that we can see. The Guardians, playoff team usually every single year. But, I mean, the $100 million, that's not that much money that they've put into it. They won 88 games with $100 million. The Rays are usually always up there, but they only spent $88 million. Up there, I'm saying, at the top of the standings. They're usually at the bottom of spending money. And then you got these are the true bottom feeders. The Pirates, the White Sox, the A's, and the Miami Marlins. That is, those 4 teams right there are the biggest issues. Because the Rays can at least keep themselves competitive. Those teams at the bottom are just collecting that. A coworker used to tell me. What would now I'm forgetting what that coworker used to tell me. So, gosh dang it, I was doing so good up until that point. All right. So I talked to Tony about this as well. And Tony was like, hey, no, that's too low. $123 million is way too low for a salary floor. And I was kind of shocked about that because I'm already getting the Marlins to spend over $50 million just to get the salary floor. He said, take out the bottom 5 teams and then calculate it. So I did. And if you take out the bottom 5 teams, the salary floor goes up to $154 million. Now, I don't think that every single team is going to be able to do the 154. There are teams that are so poor that they can't do that. But I think in the middle between 123 and 154, I think that's a kind of a sweet spot for next year's quote unquote salary floor. The reason I'm coming up with these ideas is because it doesn't seem like baseball's coming up with any. And that took me about 20 minutes earlier today to think up. So what I'm trying to prove is if I put 20 minutes into thinking about how to fix this, the people who actually run baseball can start coming up with some ideas. And I know it's not just as simple as, hey, you have to spend this amount of money. I know it's not like that. It's not that simple. There's politics involved. There's a lot of other things involved other than, hey, you now need to spend this amount of money. But again, Kyle Tucker may go to one of these teams because they need to hit their salary floor and they need to spend some money. And so Kyle Tucker instead goes to the Reds instead of the Dodgers, and everybody feels better about life. So again, very loose way of doing things. But again, I came up with that in 20 minutes, so baseball can do a little bit better in just 20 minutes. Oscar says, where are the Rockies? Surprisingly, and the Rockies signed a big deal with Chris Bryant, but the Rockies, $149 million. Oh, wait, no, that was the wrong one. Sorry. Got to go back to this one, to the total payroll allocations for 2025. I know the Rockies are up there, though. Not really up there. 22nd. They spent $127 million last year. So they just barely made the salary floor. But at least the Rockies are trying a little bit. Feel like they're trying just a little bit. KG is saying the deferrals are insane as well. A team should not be able to defer $1 billion. I got no arguments about that, complaints about that. I just think that they're going to have to take care of this in the CBA because it was legal for them to do. The Dodgers were the only team that really took advantage of it. But I've said this before on the show. If a luxury tax or a competitive balance tax is not a deterrent, then something is broken within the system. KG says 154 million isn't too obscene. Okay. I'm fine with it. Just pay me the most money, okay? Or pay the guys the most money, but split them out is what I was trying to say. That was a brain cramp right there. Let's see if there's anything else there. YouTube changed the usernames, so sometimes they're just numbers and stuff, but this person says Dodgers $1.05 billion in deferred contracts. Absolutely ridiculous. I don't disagree that it's ridiculous. However, it was a part of the rules. Like Juan Soto, I don't believe took any deferred money. I'm not sure about that, but I'm 99% sure he didn't take any deferred money. The Dodgers took advantage of it, and I think, I don't know this for sure, but when I think about them deciding this whole luxury tax thing, blah, 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 they never, and deferred money, they never thought that it was going to come and play with a $700 million player like Shohei Ohtani. And that's where this whole deferral thing went crazy. is when they deferred like basically all of his $700 million to a later date, which is a good payday for him, but insane. Absolutely insane. Okay, before we get to the Daily Gripe, Quentin Jammer tweeted this out earlier today, and my jaw hit the floor. And it said this, true story. In 2011, I played completely blank-faced drunk in at least 8 games. So, number one, that is incredible. I can't imagine playing professional football wasted. And number two, how did he pull this off? That is my question. How did he pull this off? I mean, playing in 8 games drunk, completely bleep-faced drunk, that is crazy. Like, I cannot imagine how someone could do that. And so to tie it into my drinking, it's a weird backwards way of thinking about it. But I always thought, man, it must be nice to be a pro athlete or a college athlete because you don't have to go party on a Saturday night. You could just say, hey, I'm playing my football game, or hey, I'm studying for I'm watching film or something like that. Pros too. Pros don't drink before the night of their football game. They wake up, they have to feel great. I'm learning more and more that pros do not do this thing sober. I mean, not all of them are using substances, but like pros, there are a lot of these stories that we just don't know about. And I just don't know how you play professional football at the level that Quentin Jammer did while you're drunk. KG says, have you heard of John Daly? Yeah, I've heard of John Daly, but he's playing golf. He's not playing professional football where he's getting smashed. That shocked me. And so I wanted to bring it to all of you.
What's annoying Skraby today? Let's find out. It's time for the Daily Gripe.
All right. Daily Gripe. First, I would like to say that PlayStation is going to make MLB The Show a mobile game now. So if you know anything about me, you know I love my mobile video games. I play a ton of mobile video games, but MLB The Show is making that. Wanted to get that in before the Daily Gripe. My Daily Gripe is this. I felt like last week everything was working against me last week. I felt like everything was working against me. And so I've been playing The Last of Us 2. I've moved on from Spider-Man. I've been playing The Last of Us 2. And I was really close to beating this level, but I had to leave for work or whatever, go to bed. So I saved it. I was thinking about playing this level the whole drive home after work. And when I got home, I tried to turn on my PS5 and my controller was broken. First time it's happened in like 3 years or 2 years of owning this system. And so the Daily Gripe is this. The Daily Gripe is to look forward to something like playing a video game and beating a level and then getting home and realizing that your controller is broken for the first time in like 3 years. That's the Daily Gripe right there. It was very, very upsetting. Could not play Last of Us 2. Went to Walmart to try to get one. They didn't have the one that I wanted. It's crazy. PS5 controllers apparently are not that well made, but mine lasted like 2.5 years. That's because I stopped throwing them and all of that. All right. That's it for the Skraby Show. We'll be back tomorrow with more. Gwen and Chris. No Chris, just Tony and I will finish up Winter Meetings Day 3. Have a great night, everyone. Thanks for listening.